Sherry jolted awake. Where was she? Her head spun. This wasn't her room. Panic flooded her. She tried to sit up, but something felt wrong. Her limbs felt like jelly. She looked down. Tiny hands, chubby legs. She screamed. Her scream came out a garbled squeak. The bedroom door flew open. Two figures stood there, silhouetted in the hallway light. It was Max and Mia, the kids she was babysitting. But something was different. They were smiling? Looks like Sleeping Beauty is finally awake, Max chuckled, a sinister glint in his eyes. Sherry tried to speak, to demand what they had done to her, but only gibberish left her lips. Her heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic drum in her chest. She was trapped in a child's body. Mia sauntered closer, holding up a strange, glowing device. It pulsed with an eerie blue light. It hummed with an alien energy. Sherry instinctively knew this was the source of her transformation. "Don't worry, Sherry," Mia said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "We're just getting started." "What do you want?" Sherry whimpered, her voice little more than a squeak. Max and Mia exchanged a knowing look. They were enjoying this. Their usual power dynamic flipped on its head. Sherry, the authoritative babysitter, was now their plaything. "We just want to have some fun," Mia chirped, her eyes gleaming with mischief. She pointed the device at Sherry. Sherry felt a strange tingling sensation wash over her. It was as if her very being was compressing, shrinking inward. Her clothes felt loose, hanging off her diminishing frame. She looked down. Her tiny hands were now even smaller, chubby and dimpled like a baby's. Her legs were reduced to soft, uncoordinated rolls. She was a toddler, helpless and scared. Max and Mia erupted into laughter, their cruel giggles echoing in her ears. Tears streamed down Sherry's face. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own shrinking body. "What have you done to me?" she wailed, her voice a pitiful sob. Max and Mia, no longer intimidated by their former babysitter, treated her like a living doll. They dressed her in silly outfits, fed her mushy food, and spoke to her in baby talk. Each indignity chipped away at Sherry's sanity. They found a perverse joy in their newfound power. They had taken everything from her, her independence, her dignity, her voice. Sherry was a prisoner in a gilded cage, her own personal hell disguised as a child's playroom. Days turned into a blur of forced naps, juice spills, and nonsensical cartoons blaring in the background. Sherry was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. She watched, helpless, as Max and Mia ran amok in the house. They ordered pizzas they couldn't pay for, emptied cupboards of sugary snacks, and left a trail of destruction in their wake. The house, once a haven of order and routine, descended into chaos, but Sherry was powerless to stop it. One afternoon, as Max and Mia were engrossed in a video game, Sherry saw her chance. She crawled, her diaper sagging, towards the glowing device that lay abandoned on the floor. It was her only hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could reverse the effects, break free from this living nightmare. She reached out, her tiny hand shaking, and grasped the cool metal. As her fingers made contact, a jolt of energy surged through her. Images flashed before her eyes, swirling colors, distorted faces, a feeling of falling. Then, as quickly as it began, it stopped. Sherry looked down at her hand. It was bigger, no longer the hand of a toddler. Hope flickered in her chest. Just then, the front door swung open. Sherry's heart leaped. Could it be her parents? Had they somehow sensed her plight? But it wasn't her parents. It was Mark, her boyfriend, his face etched with worry. Relief washed over Sherry. Finally, someone who could help. But her relief was short-lived. Mark took one look at her, his eyes widening in horror. "Sherry?" he gasped, his voice trembling. "What happened to you?" He rushed towards her, but stumbled, his balance askew. He looked down at his feet, his eyes filled with disbelief. He was shrinking, his body changing, morphing into a child. Mark, now the same age as Max and Mia, stared at his hands in horror. The glowing device, still clutched in Sherry's hand, pulsed ominously. Max and Mia, their faces a mixture of shock and delight, had stopped their rampage and were watching the scene unfold with wide-eyed fascination. "What's happening?" Mark's voice cracked, his eyes darting between Sherry and the strange device. The room was silent, the air thick with tension and fear. Sherry had no answers. She was as clueless as he was. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. A cold wind swept through the house, slamming doors and rattling windows. Then, silence. Sherry and Mark, two children trapped in a terrifying, inexplicable situation, huddled together in the darkness, the only sound the frantic beating of their own hearts. What had happened to them? Who was behind this bizarre turn of events? And what would become of them now?